So it's that time of the month again. We're doing the monthly Q&A. I think I'm a day late, so I think we're in the new month, but still, all it means is technically you're getting two Q&As in 1 month, but it's just because scheduling got a little tight at the end there, so wasn't able to make the official deadline, but still, I always love doing these. They're always fun, so if you have any questions that you'd like answered either in next month's or potentially future month, let me know down below, and if it's interesting enough, I'll feature it in a video. So first up, what is a drink or food that you wish you had in the place you live in that you had in a different country, states, etc.? To be honest, I think it's not specifically like a specific food or drink, but just more so you often see, like whether it's Japan or even in America as an example, there's so many different varieties of things that you've just come to know and expect, whether you love them or hate them. Like a bazillion different Oreo flavors that are baffling. Sometimes they seem appealing, sometimes you think they're clearly just throwing shit to see what works. But the number of times sodas to juices and just things get twisted in such a creative way, definitely just that in general. I wish more countries, whether it's in Canada where I live or just many different countries, could experience those without needing to import them for a ridiculous amount of money. Do you have any advice for people that procrastinate too hard and they try to get out of that loop, but they can't? I think in general, everyone either goes through a phase or is stuck in that phase throughout their entire life, just the different extremes, obviously, throughout the year. For me personally, I do have sometimes a hard time focusing on anime. Like when I'm watching anime to record my thoughts on the stuff that I'm covering, I do find myself being distracted of needing to check my social media or check my emails or check my this or that, right? The best thing that I can give you to say, like, in order to, like, stop doing that, whether you're trying to study for an exam or just you feel like your life's kind of getting out of hand, simply look at it as this. Imagine that if you don't focus on the task at hand, as much as your logic in your brain's going to say, oh, it's just 5 minutes or it's not actually that important, view it as something like, if I don't do this in an appropriate amount of time, I will lose my job and won't have a place to sleep. If you put your mindset in that extreme, I guarantee you're going to be able to go from not being able to focus that hard to being like, God damn, if I don't focus, I'm going to lose everything, even though the logic in your mind is going to say you're not actually going to. But it does help to put things in perspective that if you're having trouble with such a small thing, like imagine that starts to take control with bigger things in your life, right? So it just helps to kind of put things in perspective and train your brain now so that in the future, it won't actually hinder things that will truly, truly matter. This one I've actually had saved for a few months here, but I wanted to wait until Platinum End ended to talk about. So what are some of your favorite tragic, unexpected, or ironic endings? I feel like these are the sort of endings that often get a lot of flack in fiction and the anime community sometimes. And the reason I say Platinum End is because even before Platinum End wrapped up, I knew the general idea, which if you don't want spoilers, obviously just go into the next question, right? That's the most spoiler warning I'm giving. So Platinum End essentially ends with the world ending. Like, I knew that to begin with, so I knew I wanted to save that because I love those types of endings, whether it's Devilman Crybaby, Ava to an extent as well, right? But the idea that, stuff like Platinum End, people come out being like, oh, it was pointless because everything ended. But I mean, our lives end someday. Hopefully you reach at least 80. Sometimes people get to 100, right? Hell, there was a woman, I think, who just recently passed away who was like 120, right? You don't know when it ends, but everything will end. But it doesn't make things pointless. And I think the idea of bittersweet or tragic endings, well, yeah, they definitely stab you in the heart and they maybe leave you a little bitter. But those things are going to stick with you far more than they all lived happily ever after, I can guarantee you. Because whether it's for negative or positive reasons, like, you're going to remember those endings that shook you to its core. And I honestly find that the endings that go more extreme, like people all end up dead or things like that, I kind of feel like it made the things that happened prior to that more impactful because, time's a valuable thing. So for me, anything that ends in tragedy, while I want everything to end in tragedy, I'd rather most things do end in a satisfying, at the very least, a few characters get a happy ending. The endings where, like, shit just gets completely obliterated, especially when you're dealing with, like, religion, makes total sense to me to end it in that kind of crazy-ass way. So yeah, Platinum End and anything with worlds ending, I love those, even though they get so much flack. And another one from you as well, just because I had that one saved and this was a decent question. What's your favorite Pokemon? For the longest time, I would have said Torterra, and I still consider Torterra one of my favorites. Without a doubt, my favorite grass type. I love the grass-ground duo and how it's just a giant turtle, right? But I have to say, after finally, coming to my realization when I was playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, Electivire has always been one of my favorites, but I've always put him below Torterra, but I just love that big electric Yeti. There's just something so cool. Well, I often see questions like, hey, if you could start with one Pokemon in a Pokemon journey, who would your starter be? Elekid, 100%. Elekid to Electabuzz to then that giant electric Yeti. Coolest shit ever, but Torterra, very close second, followed by Honchkrow because that is the sassiest milady bird that I've ever seen. Has there ever been a point in your YouTube career where you've hated hearing your voice while editing and it made you feel demotivated? Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, after you make one video and post it online, whether 2 people watch it or 100,000 to close to 1 million people have watched it, there really is not much of a difference because once you overcome that first hurdle, because no one wants to listen to their own voice at first. No one wants to see the picture that they took at first, right? Everyone has different self-confidence issues of putting themselves out there. But once you do it to the extreme of uploading your feelings online so that anyone can watch it, it's really hard not to, at that point, just not give a shit anymore. Honestly, I love listening to myself at this point. I love listening to my voice. I love listening to what I have to say. I mean, as egotistical as that might sound, honestly, doing YouTube, it just adds to so much confidence. I think that's why the influencers online who have to use all the filters and stuff when they post their selfies on Instagram, I don't think have that much self-confidence because they need to add so much to it to make it feel like people will accept them. But I think that just general people who are smiling and taking pictures at the zoo or the park or just they're eating dinner, right? Those I actually believe are genuine happy people and don't second guess posting something because of course there'll be a troll that will talk shit, that will act like, oh, you're the most ugly or horrible person. But at the end of the day, they're the ones with the profile pic not advertising what they look like or what they sound like, where you're doing so. And a majority of people clearly don't have an issue with you. So really, you're going to be your own worst critic. Just do it. And ultimately, you're going to be fine afterwards. I mean, there's always going to be hate, but the great thing about the internet is the tools we get. We can block people, we can mute people, we can ignore people, right? And I think the more positivity we surround ourselves with, the longer we're going to live and have a happy life. So that's how I'd answer that question. Do you have any suggestions and tips for growing/grooming a beard? Tried before, but didn't really succeed. Also, do you have any work regimen to keep in shape? In terms of growing it out, I mean, I don't do anything specific. I literally I trim it once a month if I'm lucky, once every 3 months if I'm lazy, sort of a thing. You just get, electric clipper. It has different attachments, lengths, and things like that. And based on how full your stuff comes in, typically this is the fullest area of any beard, right? This will come in a lot slower. So you can trim it up and you can use, professional scissors to clean up things. But the biggest thing is if you're going to grow it out, a boar hair brush, you can get them off Amazon or any place. They are more expensive than your average brush, but it will get all the finer hairs and it will let you, when you're doing your trimming and things like that, it'll make it a lot easier. Even if you're not growing it out, it just keeps everything looking a lot more tidy. As well, in terms of workout, I do 5 days a week, about 20 to 30 minutes a day at a time. I have an exercise bike. Just keeps things going a lot better after dinner. 5 days of the week, I do 3 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. Just keeps things healthy. Also helps get rid of the pandemic weight because you're not going out as much and stuff, and it just makes you feel a lot better. The kind of wake-up call for me was when I would tie my shoes, I just feel like I had no energy, and the fact that I wasn't fat, but just the fact that I was that unhealthy, that changed my life around. I spent a couple $100s on an exercise bike, and I've already seen the difference in weight and just feeling healthy. So those are the 2 things I'd say there. What is your favorite genre of video game? To be honest, anything other than sports games. I don't play sports games in the slightest. I mean, unless they're Nintendo, because Nintendo can make anything interesting, even racing games. I love Mario Kart, but don't like racing. But RPGs, action adventures, and anything with choice narrative stuff like BioWare, Telltale, stuff like that, are without a doubt my favorites, but I can play really anything. I mean, I play Halo Infinite every day, and then I'll go over to Uncharted, and then I'll go over to, Mass Effect stuff, right? I can bounce around so easily because I love so many different things alongside anime, right? How do you decide on your review subjects? I'm sure popularity is a factor, you need views, but do you hold a slot open for something you like/anticipate, but may not be hype? With all the anime in the spring season, you may be in a tight spot. This is a really interesting one, and I think anytime I answer something similar, because I have answered questions in a similar coat of paint, people always don't believe me, but it's without a doubt the truth, and I think anyone who actually focuses in on what I say in videos can believe it. And that is, I seriously just base it on what I'm interested in. I've never followed the hype to simply cover what I'm covering, right? I use a site called LiveChart, which you can sort things by popularity and among other things, right? But ultimately what I do is I look at things coming up. Obviously, I look at what's popular, because mostly when things are popular, it's because a majority of people who watch it will probably enjoy it. So I do think popular things are naturally, at the very least, enjoyable. But the things that I do is like, I look at the previews, I look at the posters, I read the synopsis, and I just kind of make a mental note of, it's anywhere between 10 to 18 shows, right? Usually I'm like, these are the ones that look interesting. And then ultimately I try the first episode, and whichever one immediately is like, oh, I want to talk about that then ends up in a slot. And then ultimately it's just a matter of not overwhelming myself, but having enough to keep the content fresh. Of course, popularity helps me notice things, but the thing that is without a doubt my entire way of picking is, do I love it? Do I love hyping it up like a megalobox, or do I look at it as a cell phone isekai and want to bury my eyes because it's just that boring and bland to me, right? I think the channels that, will only cover something over multiple episodes because it's popular or it gets a certain amount of views are some of the more unhappy people who, they're always constantly talking about being burnt out. I've never really felt burnt out. And the times that I have, it's not because of the content, but more so just other things in life piling on. So if people just talked about what they enjoyed instead of being fearful of an algorithm, despite, of course, needing to make money if it's your job like myself, just do a bunch of stuff you love and it all will work out. Trust me, I've been doing it for years and I think I do it all right. So this question basically sums down to wanting to be a YouTuber, but, wanting to do things differently and then kind of getting demotivated. Ultimately, you're not going to start out as being the best of the best. Make something and then it will probably suck. You might get lucky. I think I was very lucky with thinking, I was like, hey, this YouTube thing seems interesting. And I think I was solid at it from the beginning, but most people won't be. They'll have to work at it if they truly love it. But it may not be your career, it may not be your main hobby. But if you just try things that you're interested in, eventually you're going to find the thing that's going to work out for you. And trial and error, right? Practice makes perfect. I've been honing my craft for many years. I think the past couple of years, I've kind of perfected what I want to do on YouTube. But shit, it's been a nearly 8-year journey to do so, right? So it's something that you just got to work on. You just got to put yourself out there, try. If you fail, pick yourself back up. It's a hard thing to do before it happens, but once you fall down, it's actually quite easy to get back up. Trust me, I fell down more than most on this platform. And honestly, I've gone through highs and lows, but I'm very happy with where I'm at on YouTube. I like the sub numbers. I like the view numbers. I'm just happy being a smaller fish in a large pond, but being able to do what I'm passionate about without the fear of expectations, right? So just try it. It's the hardest thing to do, but once you put that foot outside the door, you're going to be all right. That's all for this month's Q&A. Let me know, because there will be another one this month at the end of the month. I'll try to make it so it doesn't cut as close, but let me know some questions if you have any. Leave a like if you enjoy and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.